Welcome to Derm-It Trotter. Don't swear about skincare, where host Dr. Shannon C. Trotter, a board-certified dermatologist, sits down with fellow dermatologists and skincare experts to separate fact from fiction and simplify skincare. Let's get started.
Well, welcome to Derm-It Trotter, Don't Swear About Skincare podcast. We have an exciting topic today. We're going to talk about exactly what we're doing, the presence of dermatology on social media. Here with us today, I have Dr. Lawrence Green, a board-certified dermatologist and clinical professor of dermatology at George Washington University School of Medicine. He's an internationally recognized leader in medical and aesthetic dermatology treatments and research studies, and was selected as one of the top dermatologists in the United States by Newsweek magazine in 2024. Dr. Green, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Shannon. It's an honor to be here on your podcast. It means I've crossed another milestone to be able to make it on this with you.
You're so generous and flattering. I love it. So we'll have to have you back. So, one of the things that, my, audience is really interested in is obviously social media. It's why they're here. They're tuning into the podcast, and dermatology, everything skin is all over social media. Can you talk a little bit about the social media scene right now for dermatology and skin related topics and how you're involved?
So the social media scene is really all over the place, as you know, because there's so many different venues for social media. We go from X to even LinkedIn to Facebook to Instagram and to TikTok, just to name a few. And there's others. There's Threads, which has just come out that some people are participating in. So there's so many avenues to participate, and I think that's part of the problem is that physicians who want, like you and I, who want to contribute to social media, don't know exactly where to get started and where the audience is, because social media is full of everything: truth, untruth, information, misinformation. You can there's no there's no one to fact check anything that's put out there. So you never know what's out there, what's true and what's not true, what's helpful, what's not helpful. Are you going to waste your time doing something? And it's all the place. And I think the best way for people who want to look social media to get real information is to look at who would be the experts in what they're looking for. So if you're looking on how to be a good chef and cook something and cook a recipe, you want to go to a social media outlet where a famous chef is teaching you or giving advice on a recipe. So the same thing with physicians. I think the patient should look, or the person, I shouldn't say patient, the person should look to the people who are the experts in the field that they're looking at. So if you have skincare issues, well, who's a skincare expert? The dermatologist, of course, your board certified dermatologist. If you have issues with how you walk or issues with your joints, of course, you may want to look at what an orthopedist posts or a rheumatologist. So, and medical doctors are always going to be the place for anything medically related because we have the most education. That's our job. Forget about the education. It's our job. It's what we do for a living. And I think when it comes to social media, it's best to look at the person who does that for a living and who has the certification to give the information you need. And that's difficult to do. And not everyone gives their certification. That's sort of, all it sort of makes everything hard to figure out. So that's the crux of social media. It's all over the place. And I really hope people look to the educated experts to get information for that specific thing. So you have to go searching for specific experts.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's kind of like that, consumer beware. Really, if you're out there searching for that information, you need to know who you're talking to. I looked up, there was a study just kind of evaluating this back in 2020. Healthcare professionals on Instagram, about 38% of Instagram accounts with popular dermatology content, and board certified dermatologists accounted for just 4% of those, which was kind of shocking to me. And then with those healthcare professionals too, they found credentials were missing for about 27% in the healthcare professional category. And a lot of those social media self-care experts or skin influencers, I think what people don't realize is they may lack qualifications. And if you really just look at a whole, the majority of skin or dermatologic advice on social media is being provided by non-dermatologists, which is essentially why we're here, to hopefully have that presence and that voice. When you've looked at social media, what are some of the positives or negatives that you feel like that have come through, and particularly with skin and dermatology?
Boy, Shannon, that's a question with a full half-hour answer, because there are
Exactly.
so many
We got
positives and
short.
negatives. I know there's so much on social media. So Now, I concentrate on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, and I think most dermatologists do. X is really more political, and LinkedIn is more professional. And I do, when I publish an article, a new article on something I've done clinical research on, I'll put that on LinkedIn and try and get everyone the information about that new article. That's not something I would do on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. But for general interacting with the public, those are the three media that I think most dermatologists engage in. I think most of the population engages in. Facebook is a bit of an older demographic. TikTok's, you know, middle of the road demographic, and TikTok is a younger age demographic, but really there's a huge mix, and everyone's on all of them, checking them all the time. And I know I am, I know my wife is, she goes from TikTok to Instagram to Facebook and back, because new information keeps coming out at lightning speed. New information keeps coming out. So, and you never know how Instagram or TikTok, why it sends you the feed of this person versus that person, even if you follow them or don't follow them. You're following, hundreds, if not thousands of people, and why are you getting this feed coming to you first? I have no idea. But you have to, even just because you're getting that feed, I think the public doesn't need to think that that's because that's most important to you and something you should listen to. We don't know how the algorithms work, but I think it's important to seek out, and that's where social media can be very helpful. Seek out qualified people to give you the information you're looking for. You're not going to look to me to give you information about cooking or even orthopedics or something like that. I don't want to give information. If you're seeing
No.
no, if you're seeing me give information on that, don't trust me. I can say right now. So I'm looking to this not as not something personal. For me, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok are a business. I don't
Mhm,
have a personal account. For me, it's a business in a
mhm.
way that I think it's important to tell truthful information, educate the public, and get rid of misinformation. So I think when the person is looking for something, if they can do an educated search, social media can be very helpful. A specific targeted search looking for the right experts to give you that information can be very helpful. If you're not, you're doing sort of a haphazard search, you're not necessarily going to get information that's going to be helpful. Um, I'll give you an example. Back, I was doing some work for the Acne and Rosacea Society about a year ago, and they had me look at videos that were on Instagram and TikTok about people promoting cures and treatments for acne. I mean, there were things like green juice mixed with spinach or some green stuff, helping their acne, and playing with acne as another cure, and picking at pimples.
Mhm.
Um, all the things nothing we'd recommend, and nothing with science back behind it. So even crazier things like certain foods causing acne, which there's no information and relevance for. But these are just random people with credentials that who knows what they are. They're on there. They're on social media. That's credentials enough. If you want to, you can put it out there, and they would get thousands of views on these ideas which have no scientific merit. So that's where you have to be careful, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Just
that makes
because, yeah, just because someone said, if
mhm.
I said to you, Shannon, you know what? I ate I ate cream cheese on carrots today, and my acne cleared up. And I'm going to post on Instagram about the cream cheese and carrots is the best thing for acne. Does that mean it's a good treatment for acne? No, it's not a good treatment for acne. Just maybe you experienced it. That's great. And your friend experienced it. That's great. But that's not the way science works. Science works on that we have to do a clinical trial. We have to show something works in general, not in a specific individual, but in general, we have trends that it works. And that's what we want to recommend. We want to use scientific information. And that's why I think the dermatologist role is very important in social media, to put out what's there so that when people can search appropriately, they can find information that's helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's the positive. You can get out there and put out information that makes sense. It's accurate, especially expert led by a board certified dermatologist. And the negatives, like you highlighted, it's the misinformation and potentially some of those stories. Although I know that the carrots and cream cheese, I hate carrots. I'm okay that you did that story, but carrots and cream cheese, maybe seem relatively harmless, but you're right. Does it make sense? It's not even evidence based, but then there are things people are saying that potentially could cause harm, and they have no idea the potential harms of things they're recommending. And so I think, yeah, taking that with a grain of salt, as you mentioned, look for those credentials, and definitely before you attempt anything that you've learned about, make sure you check with your local board certified dermatologist that you see. Now, you talked about, going back to those carrots and cream cheese. What about some other myths? Where have patients come in and said, hey, I saw this on TikTok, I think this works. works, or what do you think about this? What are some of the more crazy things you've had people come in and talk about that they've seen on social media?
Well, I'll give you an example that happened to me 2 days ago. It was on Thursday that someone came in with hair loss, a gentleman, and which in hair loss is, I think, one of the most common things we dermatologists see now. It's a whole nother podcast, is why hair loss from 15 years ago I barely saw, but now I see it more commonly than acne, pretty much. But he came in with hair loss, and his wife was on the phone during the visit, and I mentioned potential treatments, and the wife through the phone said, "What about vitamin K?" And I said, "I don't know anything about vitamin K. I've
Mhm.
never seen any scientific literature on vitamin K helping hair." And she's, "No, no, no. I've researched. I've seen on social media people are promoting it," and goes on and on. And I'm trying to say, I'm sorry, but I've never seen that information. I'd like to see it, where you got the information, the sources. And she was going on that it's a credible people. Um, so this is the type of information that comes to you, we see on a daily basis. And then at the end, it turns out she was talking about zinc. She got the information wrong. She couldn't remember correctly. And zinc is associated with hair loss. Is an
Mhm.
important thing to have to help stabilize and grow hair. But that people come in with this idea from social media that it has no basis in fact, just because people are saying it out there, and they say, "Oh, well, multiple sources." Well, who are these multiple sources? So there's an example right there of something we see in the office every day that, to be honest with you, takes away time where I can help the patient more. I need to redirect to because I want to be helpful to the patient, to give them good information that will really help their hair.
Mhm. No, I think that is true. People don't realize, and then just through telephone or not remembering, right? They're questioning something that they might have heard. And it sometimes even teaches us, it draws us, to that attention of what's being said out there. I can remember a patient coming in and talking about period facials. And I said, "Period facials? What's a period facial?" And she said, "Oh, you use your menstrual blood and you apply it to your face, and it's supposed to help you have youthful and glowing skin." And I said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 where did you see this?" And she had mentioned she had seen this on social media. And so I tried to talk with her about this not being a great idea of, bacteria, other contamination, and, the problems that could happen in infection. And I said, "Did you actually try this?" And she said, "I did." She said, "I think it might have helped, but I'm really not sure." But that was something, she didn't even think to double check and just thought, "I saw it, looks like a good idea, and I'm going to do it." And I think that's the fear a lot of us have in dermatology. People aren't really vetting the people they're talking to and just go out and attempt it without talking and to their dermatologist. And there are risks with that, that we want patients to kind of be aware of. I think slugging is the other thing. People talk about slugging all the time. And I remember working with dermatologists back in my training that recommend it, just didn't have a cool term yet. People wanted that extensive occlusion and hydration, but I think people forget about the risk of acne and the other challenges that come with it, that there are some pluses and minuses, even with things that could seem, somewhat harmless, where you might just apply petrolatum to the face. So I think that's kind of neat how it's bringing this to our attention to have the conversation with patients. But you're right, sometimes it's a lot of time to redirect and rebuild that trust, because sometimes they're trusting what they hear out there from folks without credentials and sort of second guessing what we're doing in the office, which is something I'm hopeful with our presence we'll be able to turn around. Can you think of, some conditions or situations in dermatology where you feel like social media has definitely had a positive influence for sharing more accurate information with the public, where you feel like people were going askew, whether it was with sunscreens and people were ready to abandon them because the impact on, the reefs, or whether certain medications, maybe isotretinoin, where patients thought, "Oh, it's the most terrible thing ever." I heard it causes all kinds of problems on social media. Anything that really sticks out to you, where you've really seen it be helpful for us as dermatologists?
Well, actually, let me backtrack, because I can think of so many things where it hasn't helped. You mentioned acne with I've had acne with slugging as well. People who have acne want to use
Yeah.
slugging, and that's good for someone if you have really dry skin, an old person like me. But if you're younger and you have acne, slugging is not a good idea, and petrolatum on your face, of course, is not a good idea. Another thing, those roller needles people can buy
Oh, yeah.
over the counter, instead they think it's microneedling. That is not microneedling. It's not the same thing we do in our office. It's very safe. I've seen people scar themselves and horribly injure themselves for that. So we can go on and on. And I think part of the problem is, we can have a positive influence, and we do, but it's an uphill battle, because how many of us are on social media? We're physicians. We work, 10, 12 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And when do we have time for social media?
Mhm.
So the people who post on social media, that's what they're doing. So how can we, who are working full days, then have to post and then do this, keep up with people who that's what they do? And they can search the internet and come up with all these crazy ideas because it'll get them more views and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's very, very difficult. And there are some dermatologists that one of my former George Washington residents, after he finished, no presence on social media. He said, "But I'm not going to work. I'm not going to find a job. I'm going to build a social media presence and try and get out some good information." And he didn't work. I don't know where he made his money, but for a few years he built it. He has, hundreds of thousands of followers,
Uh-huh.
and that's all he did for a living. But that's what you have to do in
Yeah.
order to build a social media presence. That's what these people do. And I don't think we can do it. I think it's important that every dermatologist do the best they can. There are, how many of us in the United States? 15,000, sixteen
Mm-hmm.
thousand, um, to try and post on social media. But the truth is we can't do it. I'm lucky if I can post 5 days a week. I try and post 5 days a week, but I can't always do that because I have a job.
Mm-hmm.
And my primary focus is not social media. My primary focus is taking care of patients.
Right.
So, and so is yours. And that's the disadvantage that we face. And that's, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how to overcome that. I think,
Mm-hmm.
except that people who look have to do searches and be very specific and search for board certified dermatologists, or
Mm-hmm.
just search dermatologist, so they can at least hopefully get someone who's got credible information. Now, positive information, we try. The American Academy of Dermatology has really been focused on getting a better social media presence out there. We have some dermatologists that work and take some time off to exclusively post on truthful things, relevant information for the public that's trending. And they're trying, but that's just a few people in this massive world of social media. But that's what we have to do more of. Is I wish dermatologists could just do social media like that one of my former residents at George Washington did, or what the American Academy of Dermatology is doing, paying people to take off from work and spend time posting and post correct messages, because that's we need more of. And I think where we've succeeded, I think we've done pretty good with sunscreen. Listen, there's a lot of people who still believe that sunscreen can be bad for you and harmful, and the FDA is looking at some ingredients in sunscreen, so there's some that gives just fuel to the fire for people to make make it like sunscreen doesn't help people. But don't forget, we have 50, 60 years of safety, and no one's really gotten hurt from sunscreen. Just not using sunscreen gets people hurt, and people forget that. They forget that. They just look at these little pieces of information, and then people will amplify that, and misinformation comes out. But I think we are still doing pretty well in sunscreen, but we've got to continue because misinformation continues to come out there.
No, I totally agree. I think that's the real goal of social media now with dermatology is that we're creating a presence. I think for a while, we just weren't on there and there still aren't a lot of us on there, just like you said, for those very reasons. We're doing day-to-day patient care, but through efforts, through our national organizations and other societies, I think getting out there is what's important. You willing to come on today is what's so important that we can actually provide that information because if we're absent, it only makes it worse. So just putting our presence there, I think is the first step. I think we've made strides, probably in really awareness of certain skin conditions that just get little attention, probably like hidradenitis suppurativa. I would say that's been one of the successes from not only board certified dermatologists, but even some of the quote unquote skin influencers out there that may lack some credentials, but they've talked about their condition. I would say that's been one success to get patients through the door where I feel like I've been able to help somebody with something that's not as well known or just not diagnosed. And so I really feel that's been a positive for social media. And in the last couple minutes that we have here today, how do you feel like being on social media really helps improve, your credibility with patients and the public? And do you think it's something important that you're going to continue to have that voice out there?
So I don't know how many people really have come to my office because they've seen me on social media. Because social media is just all over the place. It's not local. So it's not, I'd think, a way to, I mean, there's been a few, but very few. I don't think social media is a way to build a practice. But what I think is important is we're here for the population. We're here for the public. We're here to educate the public about what we know about our job. And that's what we've gone to school for, had all this advanced training, we spent all these years training for. It's part of giving back. And I think dermatologists should give back. It's difficult because we're working 60 hours a week. And where do you find time to create videos? It's all video content. And you're not going to see from me these super edited videos of that take so much time to create, of me superimposed on this and that, and then cut and paste. I barely have time to do just a regular video, but and that's what we're up against, is people will do that. But I think it's important besides that. So what if it's basic? get it out there. I started on social media probably 7, 8 years ago. I was on the ASDS board of directors, and Doris Day, as a dermatologist in New York, was already on Instagram and talked to me about it. And she really brought to my attention that this is an important way to gain patient trust and to increase the influence of dermatologists out there. At that time, there wasn't so much riffraff and all this other misinformation, but still, it's the venue that we can bring our message, because our job is to educate. We want to treat and help patients, but our job is also to educate patients. And we can, I think it's important we do our best if we have time. First, of course, patient care comes first, to educate the public.
Yeah, and like you said, patient care, this is an extension of it. Taking time, if you can, to go on social media, the time you took with us here today just to talk about it, to make, our audience really aware of looking for those credentials, board certified dermatologists, really, just looking for accurate information. And hopefully we've been able to provide that, I think, to the audience today to give them a little perspective on surfing the internet next time, if they're on TikTok or Instagram, that they look for dermatologists providing that, because that is an extension of the care that we provide every day. So Dr. Green, thank you for coming on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. For our audience members that want to find you, do you mind sharing your social media with them as well?
Yeah, of course. I'm easy to find on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. It's at Dr. Lawrence Green, LAWRENCEGREEN. Got to put the dot after doctor, and that's where I'm at. And it's on all three, the same on all three of those social media presences. And Shannon, you mentioned one of the things people can look for is FAAD, and I put that on all my social media as fellow American Academy of Dermatology, because then you have a legit board certified dermatologist that if you're searching for an FAAD, that's another way to do it. But please, you're welcome to visit. I try and post lots of good stuff, good information that's interesting. I just posted this week, for example, I'm in the soda aisle at the supermarket, and a lot of people come to me and say, hey, does soda make acne worse? Can I drink soda? And the answer is yes, soda does not really make acne worse. I don't know where that information comes from. But so those are the things that I'll post about and try and give you a little tidbit each time.
So before you guys drink that Diet Coke, make sure you check out Dr. Green's video on Instagram. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode of Dermot Trotter, Don't Swear About Skincare.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks for listening to Dermot Trotter. For more about skincare, visit dermattrotter.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with anyone who needs a little skincare sanity. Until next time, stay skin smart.